Welcome to Speakernomics, the official podcast of the National Speakers Association. I'm Kenneth Kinney, but friends call me Shark. And like you, I'm a professional speaker and I love listening to Speakernomics. Speakernomics is a professional speaker show that will help you thrive and grow a speaking business so you too can change the world. One keynote session workshop and speech at a time. And on this episode, we welcome Joyce Marder. She's a licensed clinical professional counselor, a mental health financial mindset workplace wellness expert, known as America's workplace therapist. She's an entrepreneur that built and sold a multi-million-dollar business, an award-winning author, as well as a certified speaking professional. And we're about to go psycho on some speaking topics. Joyce, welcome to Speakernomics. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Shark. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Now, to all my speaking friends, what are your financial concerns? A lot of speakers don't think about this nearly enough, but having a great speech doesn't necessarily make having a great speaking business. If you've been in the business for a minute or two, then you've probably met speakers or even entrepreneurs who are on top 1 minute, living it up and struggling to make house payments the next. So what do you do to open your mindset rather than just opening your wallet to invest in your business and you? The question is then, what do you need to do to shift the financial mindset needed to survive and thrive during economic uncertainty for speakers? And before we jump in, make sure to go to speakernomics.com. That's where you can find the tips, insights, and knowledge to help you become a better speaker, build a better business, and get paid to speak. Joyce, let's dive in. So first of all, I think you're a perfect example of this. I think the first thing people can do to help their mindset in general is like you move from Illinois to Florida, where the sun.
Yeah.
Other than that, from your experiences, both a mental health professional and now a CSP, congratulations. What are the most common mindset blocks that hold speakers back, especially from achieving what they need to achieve, as well as charging what they're worth, and how can they overcome them?
Well, a couple things come to mind. During times of economic uncertainty, it's really common for each of us to cultivate a scarcity mindset. So we start becoming fearful. We might even become competitive in our thinking. And there's a belief that there's not enough resources to go around with federal cuts, DEI changes, et cetera. It's a tough time for many speakers. And so it's easy for us to go negative and start looking at the lack and all the challenges instead of looking at it from an abundant mindset, that this is an opportunity to look at things differently, to be creative, to be innovative, and to trust in abundance, that there's more than enough work for all of us, which really is the spirit of Cabot, right? And you asked about other mindsets. I think another thing that's really important, we speakers have egos, right? And we have to be mindful of our egos. I always say that there's a continuum between diva and doormat, and dudes can be divas too. And as speakers, we can veer into diva, which is, we're awesome and we're saving the world, right? And we deserve to get paid a tremendous amount. And if we let our egos kind of take the better of us, then we can cause problems in our business. So we can become entitled or grandiose or difficult to work with. And so we really need to cultivate that emotional intelligence to come back to healthy self-esteem, which is really embracing our positives and also understanding we're all works in progress. We can also err on the doormat side, which is where we undervalue ourselves and we might undercharge and we might overwork and not set healthy financial boundaries. And so it's really a practice of self-awareness to get in that healthy middle space where you're being honest with yourself and embracing your worth and communicating assertively about your financial boundaries with clients, vendors, et cetera.
I know with your speaker friends, this must come pretty obvious with those that know you're a therapist. I've got friends that lean on me this way, and I have no right at all to give them any professional counseling advice. However, when they know you're a therapist who talks of this, you sort of become, by default, a little bit of a speaker therapist. Whether you like it or not, that you being such a esteemed licensed therapist that helps. What have you seen with the friends that come to you, that talk to you about their business and their well-being? What have you seen that as a result, when they're able to make this shift, how it's really helped your speaker friends in general?
Well, I love supporting others. And my favorite thing is to mirror back to people everything that's unique and amazing and wonderful about them, and to empower them to have an abundant mindset and blow the lid off of self-limitation and the ceilings that we all set for one another. So I'm here for whoever needs a little pep talk and encouragement. But I think for many speakers, it's a tough business. And we have to remember we're not just speakers, we're also entrepreneurs and business owners. And a common sort of pitfall that I see is that we maybe feel like we have to invest in a tremendous amount to become successful. So whether that's coaching or software or marketing, and the investments are endless. I mean, we could spend all the money in the world on our speaker business, but we need to practice financial self-care and make sure that we are spending within our means and that we have a solid business plan. Otherwise, we're going to cause ourselves financial harm.
I couldn't agree with that more. What strategies would you recommend for those that are, going to be dealing with a lot of this uncertainty that we've talked about, especially you talked about even with DEI, but how should people seeing these shifts in the speaking business world, go about maintaining confidence, especially when pitching to these high value clients who also know that the times are changing? Bureaus know, meeting planners know, not that they have it at necessarily their advantage, but it is a different mindset for at least our party and what we can do on our side.
Well, I think it's about really being of service and having empathy and compassion for the people that we work for, the people who hire us, and also having self-compassion about how all of these changes are impacting each of us personally and professionally, and really rooting our communication in that and being innovative in terms of if a client has a limited budget compared to what they had last year, maybe there are other ways that they can support you with referrals or recommendations or getting a sponsor to sell your book or other opportunities. And so really grounding yourself in the spirit of collaboration and looking for that win-win, and the whole time embracing your worth and your value and reminding ourselves, that everything that we teach has such a ripple effect in people's organizations and their workplace, but also in their personal lives. And that has tremendous value. The biggest recommendation that I have is to talk vulnerably with other speakers. Having a community of speakers like we have at NSA is such a huge resource. And that was the biggest mistake that I made in my prior business, owning a mental health practice. I wore the mask of ego and I told everyone that everything was just fine, and it wasn't. I was in cash flow hell. I could barely make payroll because there were delays in insurance payments, and I dealt with shame and anxiety. And once I was broken open with, hitting that rock bottom, I started telling everyone, like, oh my gosh, I screwed up and I need help. And help came out of the woodwork. Other people had been through challenges too and knew ways to move through the challenges I was experiencing. So I think we need to transcend shame and fear of judgment from others and just be open and vulnerable about what we're experiencing and ask for help. I mean, that's one of the things I love about NSA is there's so many successful, compassionate people, and we all want to be of service and support one another.
So you've been to several of the conferences that NSA has put on, and we just saw each other at one. Did you see the tide turning with more people being vulnerable and real about what they're going through in their business world this year, as opposed to other times when you've gone?
I do think so. I think even in the tone of Jamie speaking to everyone about sort of pulse of what's going on in the industry and in the association, I think that the organization is thriving and people are really supporting one another in this time of transition. You could feel that in the breakout sessions. There were a lot about, developing different income streams or pitching for new business and ways that we can move through these times of challenge. And I love Meredith Elliott Powell, her messages. She always is really open about sharing that, as a speaker, many of us have been through these darker, more challenging times in the past, and we've moved through them and we will move through them again. And so it's time to, hang on to our hope and be creative and innovative and do the work.
Yeah, I would say that I saw quite a few more speakers, maybe because they're getting to know me a little bit better and opening that trust, but the tide seems to have changed a little bit with just finding a few more that are real as opposed to, oh, I'm just getting too much business. I mean, and that stuff just gets old so quickly. So I agree completely. So in your work, how have you seen a lot of these money beliefs impact their behavior? What are the sort of the harmful financial beliefs you've noticed among speakers, and how should they really show up differently in their businesses?
Well, it's important to recognize that we each have our own money story, and it comes from our families of origin and beliefs of systems that have been passed down from our parents, our grandparents, between generations. And if our families of origin have been through any kind of financial trauma, that can shape and mold belief systems that we hold that can shape how we behave with money. So according to cognitive behavioral therapy, our thoughts precede our emotions and behaviors. So if we have beliefs like wealthy people, rich people are greedy and selfish and bad, we may be unconsciously pushing money away because we have some sort of guilt about earning money. Whereas I believe that when we have more, we can help more. So we have to reframe those money beliefs. Or maybe we grew up in a family that didn't have a lot of financial means. And so we have belief systems that will never attain a certain financial status. And that belief could be holding you back. So you want to become conscious of those stories and those thoughts. We also want to be really mindful of any catastrophic or fear-based money thoughts that we might be having. That can be really common if you've been through financial trauma. When I was facing seriously bankruptcy with my former business, that was a very financially traumatic experience. And when we've been through something like that, it can shape our future behaviors. So, for example, if you've gone through unemployment or a business failing or a foreclosure of your house, you may have fear that that's going to happen again. And that might prevent you from investing in your business. You're hoarding your money instead of trusting in the flow of abundance. So it's really important to become conscious and then challenge and reframe those negative belief systems into something that's setting you up for success with abundant thinking.
When you start thinking about how, this is such a entrepreneurial roller coaster, if you will, for a lot of people as they build their business. And I've seen some people that were, making multi-million dollar speaking careers that are going through a roller coaster right now. What have you done to build really these multiple income streams in your career and the other creative revenue opportunities that you see that speakers often overlook beyond, say, the keynote?
Well, in addition to the income streams, which I'll address in a moment, I just want to mention that when we get very upset about declines in our business, a lot of that is ego-based. Our money is how we are, it's not who we are. So we want to recognize that who we are is our inner light, our authentic self, our messages of hope and healing or inspiration, tools and knowledge that are going to help people grow. And it's about being of service, and that comes back to you financially. And so when we are struggling with that, if you have meditation practices or mindfulness practices that help you detach from ego and fear, Ego houses our imposter syndrome, perfectionism, defensiveness, and judgment. And then when we can detach from that, we can get more focused on our core essence, on the mission of our business and our speaking. And then we can think abundantly and expand our income streams. So, for example, for me, I have some coaching that I do, and I offer executive coaching to my clients. My new thing is that I'm offering a free session to some of my favorite clients that I've worked with over the years. And after they experience that, then they're usually interested in booking a package with me. Also, I write for Forbes. I write for Psychology Today. These are paid opportunities, and it's like free PR. So looking at how can you generate income from some of the things that you're already doing. If you're already writing blogs or newsletters, you could be a contributor for a website like that and have even more exposure that can help your business grow. Also, I've been thinking about how to gain more business from each speaking client. So instead of when people reach out to me for a keynote saying, great, and picking which one we're going to do and signing the contract, in the meeting, I really do an assessment of their organization. And I say to them, I use this from Lois Kramer. I love how she always says, do you think it would make sense? So I say, do you think it would make sense, since mental health is clearly not a one and done issue in your workplace, that you have me for your annual conference on the stage for the keynote, and then we do quarterly webinars with all staff? Of course that makes sense. That's why I love that Lois gives that advice. You're setting them up to kind of look foolish if they say no. And then this has resulted in me having so much more of a full calendar, because instead of having a one and done model, I really become the therapist for their organization for the year. And then whenever situations come up, they'll come to me and say, hey, we're dealing with this problem. Can you give us a presentation?
So if you could give speakers one simple daily habit to shift their money mindset and business success, what would it be?
It would be to start with a morning reflection and a morning intention where you practice gratitude, you take a moment for yourself, for your breath, you focus on what's going well, and you have an abundance practice. So even visualizing money coming into you, opportunities coming to you, people coming to you who are going to help support your business, being open to hearing and seeing those messages, because they are available. If you're tuned in, you will see the opportunities instead of seeing all the closed doors and people who aren't responding to your emails. And so that is the biggest thing, to have a mindfulness practice that's rooted in abundant thinking.
Absolutely. Then looking back at your own journey, especially with your previous business, what financial or business mindset shift for you made the single biggest impact on your success now as a speaker?
Asking for support. So having a board of advisors around your finances, whether that's your accountant or someone on your team or your life partner or an accountability partner, or maybe it's a mastermind that you're in where you're all going to share vulnerably about how you're doing and have some systems of checks and balances where you can help keep one another on target in terms of that healthy self-esteem and healthy spending and healthy saving for those seasons of our work that are a little bit slower.
Great. Well, so I want to ask you a question from a previous guest, which I just think is kind of funny timing, the way it came up. But the previous speaker was talking about Dan Sullivan's book about 10x being easier than 2x. And he said, doing more of what you've done doesn't necessarily get you more of that same amount, before at some point you burn out. But what is something you could be doing to 10x your results, but you're not, because you, the licensed therapist, are scared because you're not letting go of what's on your calendar?
Oh my gosh. I think there's so many things that I could be doing. I could be having a podcast. I could do more coaching. And honestly, I'm so burnt out from being a therapist that I don't do that. But there's a lot of skills that I have that I'm not utilizing. And I love that book. And I am part of a book club where we're working on that book. And so I think for each of us, we all have blind spots. So when you talk to others about it, it's going to help show you what you're missing.
Great answer. So what is a question that you would like to ask a future guest on Speakernomics?
So I still don't have a good CRM. It's something that I have avoided because I've been fortunate to have incoming referrals without needing to do a lot of outreach, but now I need to do outreach and I'm disorganized. And I know everyone loves Speaker Flow and Austin is so great. And I know that there's Go High Level with e-speakers. Does anyone use that? What's working for you? I guess the investment has sort of kept me from moving forward. And I'd love someone to shine a light on the correct way to navigate that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, then let's do a quick recap then based on Joyce's psycho advice. That's a really good psycho advice. During economic uncertainty, it's common to have a scarcity mindset. It's easy to go negative and focus on the lack of opportunities and challenges, but this is your opportunity to trust in abundance. It is truly the spirit of habit. We have to be mindful of our egos. Don't be a diva or a doormat either. Give, serve, help, trust, and be humble in doing so. Number 2, whatever the economic times are, investing in how you serve others is a great investment. Be creative in how you serve your meeting planners and meeting professionals and embrace your value. She recommends being vulnerable with other speakers. Be real. Don't just tell your speaker friends that everything's perfect. Be humble and open. And that doesn't mean opening your tax records to everybody in the world. Just be real with others who can help you if you ask. There are a lot of great people in this profession, especially within the National Speakers Association, who will help you when you ask. Number 3, you all have your own money story. It's affected your belief system in all likelihood, but reframe some of those beliefs and don't ever fall into the comparison trap because that won't help you. Last but not least, number 4, be mindful and detach your ego from fear. Joyce, I'm looking forward to seeing you at another Influence or meeting you again at Thrive. Any last closing thoughts before we speak ourselves off this stage?
Thank you so much for having me. And just a shout out to everyone to embrace your worth and trust in abundance. You deserve it. And the world needs each of us to shine our lights brightly.
Absolutely. Friends, make sure to go to Speakernomics.com and let your voice be heard. I'm Kenneth Shark Kinney, your host of the National Speakers Association's podcast, Speakernomics, and this has been another fantastic episode of the show. Thank you, Joyce, for your service to NSA and for lending your voice to the show, and to everyone listening, thank you for the privilege of your time. And remember, Speakernomics is a podcast where you'll learn to speak, get paid, repeat.